Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews. My name is Alyssa, and this is my review for Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1, Episode 5, Spock Amok. This video, of course, does contain spoilers if you have not seen up through the end of this episode. So, Strange New Worlds so far is liking to hit on all the Star Trek archetypes that it can. It's done the virus episode. It's done the exciting space battle. So this week we get into the lighthearted, fun, comedic episode, which every Star Trek series, at least the 90s and the 60s ones, always had a few episodes like this. Modern Trek doesn't really do it, and Lower Decks, of course, is all comedy, so it's a different thing. But all of the old school Trek shows would always have episodes like this. And I have to say that in general, these are not my favorite types of episodes. Like, I don't watch Star Trek for this. I don't watch Star Trek for comedy. I like comedy when it is inserted as levity in an otherwise serious situation, which Stranger Worlds has done pretty well at this season. But I don't typically prefer my Star Trek episodes to be an hour of comedy. And Deep Space Nine was especially bad at this. If you watch my video for my 10 least favorite Deep Space Nine episodes, it's pretty much all that. It's almost all episodes that are trying to be funny. And the best case scenario, a Deep Space Nine comedy episode was just unfunny, and the worst case scenario was downright offensive. So, but in general, it's not my favorite type of episode. It's why I think Trouble with Tribbles is the most overrated episode of all time. And not that I think it's a bad episode. I think it does a really good job at being a slapstick comedy in the style of Gilligan's Island, which is what it is. I think it's good at that. So I think Trouble with Tribbles deserves credit for doing that, but that's just not what I watch Star Trek for. So it's not one of when I do a top 100 all-time Star Trek episodes, it won't be near my top 100. It's not one of my favorites. And this episode, I would put in the category of Trouble with Tribbles, where I think it does the lighthearted, fun episode very well. In fact, I would say so far that Strange New Worlds has done very well at absolutely everything that it has attempted. I don't love virus episodes, but it did very well at doing a virus episode. Did an excellent job at doing the space adventure. And so for what it is, it did a good job at it. It's just not my preferred type of episode, but they did a good job at doing this lighthearted, fun episode. And it was well placed. After last week's, which was excitement and drama and tension, a lot of tension from start to finish, to come out and then have a breath of fresh air, just like take a deep breath, with a little fun. I think this is a very well-placed episode in the season. So Strange New Worlds is just knocking it out of the park. Like, it's doing everything right. But with that said, like, probably that the highest rating that I would give an episode like this would be a 7, just because I don't. So you will see when I give my rating at the end. If I give it a 7, that's almost like a 10 for comedy episodes, because it's not my preferred type of episode. Okay, so let me go ahead and get into some of the details. I'll go through each of the storylines. All right, so of course we got to start with the Spock and T'Pring storyline with a little bit of a Nurse Chapel woven in there. So I do have to say that opening scene is probably my favorite scene of the episode. I loved how they did kind of a parody of the episode Amok Time, and even included that Amok Time music. Actually, at first, I thought they were just kind of playing around the edges of that theme, but not actually doing that theme. Kind of like what they do with the opening theme song of this show, kind of walking around the edges of the theme song of the original series. But no, they would launch full on into it. There was with human Spock fighting against Vulcan Spock, and that is very representative of how Spock sees himself. And that's not just the Ethan Peck version of Spock. That is in the Leonard Nimoy Spock as well, the struggle between his human side and his Vulcan side. And I thought that was awesome, and I loved how they were able to visualize that on the screen for us, and it was fun. This was actually fun. Now we get into the Spock and T'Pring relationship. I probably mentioned when we saw them in the first episode. This definitely does not really line up with the Amok Time episode, where we didn't really get the impression that they knew each other that well. They were just an arranged marriage. But it's fine. I'm kind of feeling about this the same way I feel about Obi-Wan and meeting young Princess Leia, as I have covering in that other show that I cover on Wednesdays, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I feel like it's kind of along those lines where it's just like, yeah, that's not what the original intent was, but it's fine. I don't have any problem with it. And I think in the end, like, it will still make sense if T'Pring, it's because that's like 10 years later that she's like, you know what, I'm over you and your Starfleet thing. I found this other hunky dude. So it still lines up. But I don't have a problem with any of that. Where I started to get a bit nervous was when they did the body swap. I was like, body swap? Really? Really? So when I was a kid, I watched a lot of cartoons and sitcoms, and there was a lot of commonalities between the two. And one of the reoccurring storylines, there was a bunch. One of them that I've complained about before in Star Trek is the amnesia storyline. Like, I saw that like in every show that I watched as a kid. This was another one, the body swap, the Freaky Friday, if you will. And so I saw that, I was like, uh-oh. Like, I'm picturing Fonzie jumping over a shark. But what saved it for me is the show poked fun at itself with some meta commentary. This is not a word that I would use necessarily, but hijinks is a good word to describe it, and I don't like hijinks. And I love the meta commentary. I believe it was T'Pring and Spock's body, if I remember correctly, who made the comment, like, well, this is getting dangerously close to hijinks. And that kind of made me feel more at ease about it, is that they're kind of using that meta commentary to kind of poke fun at themselves, that I was like, okay, well, I'll just have fun with this. And then it ended up being just dangerously close to hijinks. I don't think it went too far. I didn't think it crossed that line. It kind of skirted that line, but didn't cross that line. So I actually really appreciated that about it. Again, would this be my preferred type of episode? No. But it wasn't terrible. It wasn't the Deep Space Nine quality of comedy episode. They did a good job at what they were attempting to do, which is really all you can ask of any episode. Whatever you're attempting to do, do it well. So they did that. And then as far as Nurse Chapel, I have expressed my feelings on this character before. It just makes me sad that she's going to basically get a lobotomy and have no personality. And also makes me sad that her and Spock have apparently developed some kind of rapport that's going to completely vanish by the time they're played by Leonard Nimoy and my husband Bagel Barrett, because they don't have any rapport. So yeah, it makes me a little sad to see this version of the character. I am thankful, though, that Nurse Chapel and Spock were not on a date, because I saw the scene with them sitting at the dinner table together in the trailer, and I was like, are they going to have Spock going on a date with Nurse Chapel? Because that would be a really bad retcon, but it wasn't a date, so that was a relief that that's what it was. And putting aside what I know about, the future of these characters, like, I actually like the interactions between these characters, and like that Spock went for her for advice. It just doesn't line up with what we know of their relationship in the future, which is a non-existent relationship. So, yeah. So that is that. Yeah, it is what it is. It didn't cross the line for me. It wasn't over the top, so it did a good job. Now let's get into the pike of it all and the species that they're trying to have these negotiations with. I feel like these diplomatic negotiations are often thrown into the comedy episodes, especially in the Next Generation. I feel like I'm thinking of Manhunt in particular, which was another awful comedy episode, but there was like a diplomatic side plot to it. I feel like that's pretty common. And I'm glad they didn't go with the trope of them just being like, hard to please and angry and all that stuff, which was what it seemed like they were doing at the beginning. The fact that they are, just looking for empathy from them was actually an interesting twist. I did think it was a bit over the top that this is so important that they're definitely going to go to the Romulans or Klingons if they don't ally with the Federation. But are the Romulans and the Klingons going to give them the empathy they seek? I don't think so. So I thought that was a little bit over the top to have these kind of fake stakes like that. But it's a comedy episode, so I guess you forgive it a little bit. And I have to comment on Pike's green shirt in the style of Captain Kirk's green shirt that he randomly wore for reasons I will never understand, but I love the callback. I love that uniform. Yeah, and, I again, did well at what it was trying to do. So that's all I can really say about that. Now, the last storyline I definitely want to touch on is the La'an and number one storyline, Una storyline. And the trailer kind of gave me a little bit of a misdirect because they showed us in the trailer that conversation that they have in this episode where Lan is telling, number one that, you just terrify people. I thought it was going to be more of a confrontational thing, especially after the episode a couple weeks ago where they do have a bit of a confrontation. So I thought it was going to be more confrontational when I saw it on the trailer, but it's really just, they're actually bonding. And I found this very lower deckian, how they were just so serious, and how the rest of the crew, of course, mocks them behind their back, but how they just take everything so seriously, and their idea of fun is staying on the ship and listening to the hum of the warp engines is really reminiscent of Boimler. It's really reminiscent of Rutherford and Tendi. Rutherford and Tendi would have these nerdy conversations about and get really excited about these really nerdy scientific details. So that's what it kind of reminded me of. And it was fun. This was probably the most fun part of the episode. I enjoyed it. The Enterprise bingo thing is dumb, but they wouldn't have that. That's stupid. And the first officer would take this long to figure out that it existed. Like, people are doing all of these crazy things to get their Enterprise bingo card, and the first officer never knew about it until now. I don't think so. But again, comedy episode, you gotta kind of, let some things fly, whatever. So, yeah, it was fun. It was good. Okay, that's all I really have to say about this week's episode. Let me go ahead and give my rating at a 10. So 1 would be the lowest possible score, 10 would be the highest possible score. My rating for Spock Amok is a 7. As I hinted at the beginning of this, I can't really give higher than a 7 for an episode like this because it's just not why I watch Star Trek. It's not my favorite type of episode. So a 7 for this type of episode is like a 10 because it means that it did a really good job at doing that. Whereas opposed to Take Me Out to the Hollow Suite or some of those other Deep Space Nine episodes, the one that shall not be named, that I don't even want to think about, that's number 1 on my least favorite list. Those episodes would be more of a 1 out of 10. So 7 out of 10 is high praise for a comedy episode for me. So that is it for this week's review. Please join me next week for episode 6, which I actually have no idea what it's about. I haven't seen the titles yet because I only saw the titles for the first 5 episodes. So I'm super excited to be in uncharted, unknown territory and hope we get Hammer back. Hammer was absent from this episode. So really looking forward to that. Please join me here. Subscribe if you have not already. Also check out my Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi coverage as well. And I will see you soon. Goodbye, everybody.